love spooky movies, devilishly delicious meals, creepy cocktails, and nostalgic movie facts, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Pretty Spooky Presents Friday Night Feast and Fright, where we match our meal to our monsters. Each month I plan a pretty spooky dinner and movie to enjoy at home in the Sunken Compass, my home tiki bar. Tonight's Feast and Fright brings us on a winding journey deep into the dark and ominous mountains where we will disappear into its jagged cracks and slip into the desperate isolation of the Overlook Hotel. First, we'll head into Chef Holleran's kitchen, where you could eat for an entire year and never have the same meal twice, to whip up a snowstorm of Buttermilk-Parmesan cauliflower, complete with a broccoli hedge maze. Then we'll go big wheeling down the Overlook's boldly carpeted halls and stop just outside room 237 for some sweet and spicy salmon. Then for dessert, we'll sneak upstairs for some ginger bear cookies and ice cream with the Grady twins. To wash it all down, we'll belly up to the gold room bar for some RedRuM libations, complete with an ice shell garnish, homemade Luxardo cherries on a frozen Jack skewer. And there's no charge, as your money's no good here. Orders from the house. I work out all the details beforehand and share my low carb on the high seas recipes in the description, because they're so good, you'd sell your soul just for a taste. While Jack is busy writing the great American novel, we better get the ball rolling on dessert right away. And he'll surely be ready for a sweet treat after toiling away at the typewriter all day. Because you know what they say? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. The Overlook kitchen serves up more questions than answers, sparking dinner conversations of great depth, debates, conspiracy theories, and even nightmares. It's an acquired taste that lingers long after your first bite. What is now considered a cinematic masterpiece, shot in unconventional and experimental ways, was once met with such criticism that it was nominated for Worst Director and Worst Leading Actress. Although it was never officially awarded these dishonors, it still took critics nearly a decade to reevaluate their original remarks and more than 3 decades for the film to be included in the National Film Registry, validating the film's status as a classic for its cultural and historical significance. It seems the shining film is a dish that needs to marinate a while, like a fine wine or cheese becoming better with age. It's only fitting that controversy and turmoil surround the production from start to finish. Stephen King, the author of the novel for which the film was loosely based, made no mystery regarding the bitterness and contempt he held for the film. Director Stanley Kubrick tossed King's screenplay aside and worked with co-writer and Pulitzer Prize winner Diane Johnson, who in her upcoming years as a writer was chosen to be a guest editor for Mademoiselle magazine, alongside 19 other women, including Sylvia Plath, who made quite an impression on Johnson. Together, Kubrick and Johnson purposely steered the story away from the typical Gothic horror that it could have become, and instead embraced the monsters that lie within all of us as the real horror. While Kubrick has been condemned for his perfectionism due to grueling retakes and purposeful on-set tension to elicit the on-screen terror, I'll argue that it wasn't perfectionism, but rather experimentation and not knowing exactly what he wanted. Kubrick himself admitted to appreciating the collaborative, on-the-spot nature of the acting and directing process, and he understood that an actor who knew the scene so well, after a Guinness Book World Record setting 127 takes, the lines finally took a backseat to the emotion, which is what Kubrick was really after. In the making of The Shining, Kubrick can be heard explaining to Shelley Duvall that the exact lines don't matter as long as the delivery is right. In this documentary, Kubrick can be seen typing up and delivering new scripts on the day of the shoot, causing Jack Nicholson to state that he no longer studied his lines beforehand, knowing that he'd just be given a drastic revision right before shooting. That type of constant flux and uncertainty was as stressful as aiming for a target that hadn't been decided or defined. Actors and crew were left exhausted, yet all involved admitted the result was otherworldly and hauntingly perfect. The Shining film is a bountiful banquet of ambiguity and confusion, served up on a silver platter of artful uneasiness and tension. Even at a lengthy 144 minutes, the mysteries of the Overlook will always leave you asking for a second helping and pondering its peculiar flavors long afterward. It's going to be a long, cold winter here at the Overlook, so it'll be nice to have a warm meal to comfort us in our isolation. However, we better make extra because we're never sure who will materialize for dinner. The set of The Shining distorts time and space to disorient the viewer and allows us to join Jack on his warped descent into madness. Everything is a maze, from the unrealistic layout of the hotel to the now you see it, now you don't furniture, light switches and doorways, to the dizzying carpet and actual hedge maze itself. While it's been said by those who know Kubrick that the movement of furniture and impossible floor plan was not an error or lack of continuity, but rather a purposeful method to make the audience question their own sanity, as if the hotel is gaslighting the viewers. Not a fan of air travel, Kubrick filmed The Shining almost entirely in the UK, where the former New Yorker chose to reside with his family. He preferred working with a small and very dedicated crew at the Elstree Studios, where he could recreate altered versions of reality that were too odd to actually exist. Windows that shouldn't be possible in an interior office, with ballrooms and kitchens too large to fit inside the exterior of the hotel. And in true Overlook fashion, the crew and director became disoriented and lost within the ever-changing, movable walls of the on-set hedge maze, filled with over 900 tons of crushed styrofoam and salt, where there was no discernible sun to help maze wanderers gather their bearings. As yet another departure from King's novel, the hedge maze is the perfect method of showing Jack's twists and turns as he battles with demons. Now the question is, are those demons of the Overlook, or are they purely demons of his own making? Another recognizable set feature is the carpet over which Danny rides his big wheel. With its distracting patterns, alarming colors, and intermingling lines, it also invokes an unnerving, labyrinth-like feel, as Danny goes around corner after corner in corridors that seem endless. We cannot just let the striking visuals of the Overlook be the only focus here. We must give credit to the layered sounds of insanity that settle in for the winter at the Overlook. The use of heartbeats heighten tension. The subtle moans and screeches from beyond indicate there is much, much more to the Overlook than we can see. The jarring sounds of Danny's big wheel going from carpet to bare flooring, to the repeated and irreverent sound of the tennis ball bashing the wall where a Native American mural is painted, and the threatening, amplified sound of the typewriter keys violently striking the paper, which are much like the sounds of the axe sinking into the wooden door, tearing at its every fiber, just as the sound score tears away at the viewers, slowly breaking us down, splintering us into fragments of ourselves as we become enamored with the Overlook and wish we could stay here forever and ever and ever. And what would be more uncomfortable and inappropriate than accepting an alcoholic beverage from an evil, ghostly bartender inspired by a movie where the main character is struggling with temptation? Nothing, of course, and that is the unease and malevolence that is The Shining. There is nothing that freezes us to our core more than the bitter chill of in-your-face reality. Life is filled with temptation and opportunities to choose hedonism over morality. What's so soul-piercing about The Shining is how nearly guiltless Jack is, how entitled he feels, and how he denies reality as he replaces what really happened with a lavish script where he is his own leading man. In his own mind, of course. I shudder at the thought that anyone other than Jack Nicholson was considered for the role of Jack. But it's true that Robert De Niro, Harrison Ford, and Robin Williams were all contenders. And while all are brilliant actors, none of them have the same type of animalistic features and expressions Nicholson has. There's a beastly symmetry in his face, in his flared nostrils, and in the strong ridge of his brow. Nicholson uses his wildly arching brows to create a predator's gaze right before devouring his prey, which makes his little pigs line so perfect, because he is the big bad wolf. The axe scene where Jack tears down the bathroom door is made more terrifying because Nicholson used a real axe to tear down a real door. Matter of fact, he tore down as many as 60 doors, which looked so natural because Nicholson had been a former volunteer firefighter and knew his way around an axe. As the splinters flew in her face and the heavy blade came closer, the sounds of the axe and Shelley Duvall's terror are authentic. And yes, the famous "Here's Johnny" line was one of those improvisational elaborations that Kubrick's process of relentless retakes managed to capture. It was almost too American for expat Kubrick and the British crew to understand at first, but luckily it was left in as it clearly betrayed the absurdity of a man gone insane that Kubrick was after. And remember, the exact lines don't matter as long as they are delivered correctly. Much has already been said regarding the methods Kubrick used to elicit the panicked and fearful state required for Shelley Duvall to become Wendy. So I'll leave it at Duvall's admission that she would not trade the experience for anything, but would also not want to go through it again. Duvall's role was demanding, physically and emotionally, crying, screaming, hyperventilating, and running, all while carrying a little boy for 30 to 50 takes in succession every day for over a year. It would certainly take its toll on anyone. Yet, just as contentious as their relationship was said to have been, Kubrick never considered anyone else for the role of Wendy. And even though Jessica Lange was suggested to Kubrick by Nicholson, Kubrick never budged. Duvall was his one and only Wendy. Just as Nicholson mastered the animalistic look of Predator, Duvall mastered the wide-eyed and trembling look of his prey. Danny Lloyd was not a child actor when his father saw the ad looking for boys between 5 to 7 for a film. No previous acting experience required. His father sent in his photo on a whim, and 5 or 6 auditions later, Lloyd received the call from Kubrick's assistant to share the good news during Lloyd's 5th birthday party. Kubrick said it was Lloyd's ability to focus and concentrate that won him the part. Lloyd shares fond memories of playing ball with Kubrick, laughing with Nicholson, and swimming with his brother at Duvall's home, never realizing he was in a horror movie. Kubrick took care to shield Lloyd from any scenes that would be too scary, and even created a dummy for Duvall to carry in scenes that would be too much for a child. During the audition, it was Lloyd who began using his finger to represent the voice of Tony. And because Kubrick is open to what the actor brings to the table, as long as it is delivered with the right intention, the finger became part of the character, which makes it so much creepier. And if you felt like you already knew Lloyd the bartender before you met him at the Gold Room bar, you'd be correct. Not only did Lloyd appear out of thin air and need no introduction, it was as if he was an old friend with whom Jack was very familiar. There is much debate around whether Lloyd is a ghost that died in the hotel and has become a part of it, or if he's the devil with whom Jack barters his soul and is indebted to do his bidding, or if Lloyd is a fractured part of Jack's psyche that gives way to temptation easily. Either way, he's familiar indeed. That is because actor Joe Turkel was in 3 movies directed by Kubrick: The Killing, 1956, Paths of Glory, 1957, and The Shining, 1980.
I like you, Lloyd. I always liked you. You were the best of them. Best bartender from Timbuktu to Portland, Maine. Or Portland, Oregon, for that matter.
Now let's sip our red rum libations and enjoy the feast. I hear there's a really big snowstorm coming. So there you have it. Pretty Spooky presents Friday Night Feast and Fright featuring Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. If you try the recipes, let me know what you thought and how it went in the comments. Plus, I'd love to know if you prefer yours to be low carb on the high seas now too. And be sure to check back every first Friday for more Friday Night Feast and Fright. We're dying to have you for dinner. We loved being your haunted hostess. You are a wonderful guest, and you're welcome back always to stay here forever and ever and ever. Cheers.